appreciate everybody being here tonight. Since Brandon's not here, but he's still speaking their VBS, so I'm gonna bring a lesson tonight. You know, you hear me?
No, you're going to have to turn yourself up a little louder.
Hello? Crank it up. You know, well, bye, Tony.
Yeah, I can get you now.
Barry's prayer right there. Barry always leads a good prayer. I appreciate Barry and his prayers. But he said he thanked God for the written word. And you know what? We hope and pray that we never take God's written word for granted. You know, the world has everything so messed up. It's so wrong. I mean, they reward iniquity. It's hard to imagine, you know, how things can be so seemingly backwards. And you can kill a grizzly bear, and an animal that is, they say, is close to extinction, which it probably is. But you kill a grizzly bear, you can go to jail for 5 years, 5 to 10 years, depending on. And up to $50,000 to $100,000 fine. You kill a baby in a mother's womb, and it's a right. Something wrong with that picture, right? When a man refuses or won't work to support his family, the human rights or their rights is such that the government should pay their way. The Bible is clear on both of these things. 2 Thessalonians 3:10 says, "A man that won't work, neither should he eat." Old Testament, New Testament is covered in the killing of innocent blood. It's wrong. Thank God we have the written word that we can go to as Christians and live according to His will and pleasing to Him. We've got a lot of different ages in here tonight, and I thought of what would be a good topic, and so we're going to talk about tonight compassion and just how to treat each other. It seems like the world is, whether it's in politics or the news, you just bickering back and forth, arguing. Man, just turn it off. You know, I don't even want to hear it, but you want to try to stay on top of the issues to know who to vote for or whatever. But it gets old. You know, you get tired of hearing that old stuff. So, but you know, if people would just be Christ-like, have structure in their life according to God's word, it would be such a better world and such a better place to live. And all these babies, these young guys in here, you know, we've all got kids and grandchildren. What in the world is this world going to look like in 15 to 20 years? I mean, in my lifetime, look how much has changed in the last 30 years. We as Christians need to stay on top of the issues and try to, you know, see which way everything's going and live and vote according to God's word. We've sat on our hands so long it's a battle. But anyway, I didn't mean this to be a political discussion, but you know, true compassion. If we showed each other true compassion, if we showed the unborn true compassion, if we showed each other true compassion, there would be few jails. You know, there would be, it would be such a better place to live. I was thinking about this. True compassion is this. Is when we do things to and for other people that can't do things for themselves or have no means and ways of doing things for themselves. And not expecting nothing in return, in which, Christians think that way. We do things for the love, for the examples. That's what Christians should be and how they should do it. We should also show true compassion, and this is hard. True compassion is when we are good to others who are not good to us. True compassion is when we treat our enemies how we would be treated, wanted to be treated. And that's tough sometimes, but that's true compassion. And it's scattered throughout the Bible. And so I want to touch on that a little bit tonight. Let's go to Romans 12 and verse 20 first before we leave there. Romans 12 and verse 20. When it talks about how we treat our enemies and Romans 12 and verse 20 and 21. Therefore, if thine enemy hunger, feed him. If he thirst, give him drink. For in so doing thou shalt heap coals of fire on his head. Be not overcome of evil, but overcome evil with good. That last verse there is pretty important because we as Christians have to not have the attitude of I'll get you back or I'll get even with you. Be not overcome with evil. That's what he's talking about there. But overcome that evil with good. It's hard to be nice to someone who hasn't been nice to you. It's hard to be, to overlook that sometimes. But that's true compassion, though. That's caring. But and by us doing that, we may win that soul. We may break that cold heart. That calloused heart may be softened up. Let's look at some scriptures from the Old Testament concerning this. Job 31 and 32. Job 31 and 32. The stranger did not lodge in the street, but I opened my doors to the traveler. I've got 3 or 4 I want to read here to just set the tone. The next one is Leviticus 19 and verse 10. Leviticus 19 and verse 10. And thou shalt not glean thy vineyard, neither shalt thou gather every grape of thy vineyard. Thou shalt leave them for the poor and the stranger. I am the Lord your God. Leviticus 19 and 34. The stranger that dwelleth with you shall be unto you as one born among you, and thou shalt love him as thyself. For you were strangers in the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your God. And one more, Deuteronomy 24 and verse 20. When thou beatest thine olive tree, thou shalt not go over the boughs again. It shall be for the stranger, for the fatherless, and for the widows. True compassion is a heart that is ready to help when the opportunity arises. Sometimes it takes a little searching, a little seeking out. True compassion is always willing and ready to help. One of the greatest examples of true compassion is from the master teacher himself. When Jesus was answering the lawyers in the parable of the Good Samaritan. Turn to Luke chapter 10 And let's read that parable. We won't have enough time to cover what I want to cover, but Luke chapter 10, verse 30. The parable of the Good Samaritan here. Luke 10, verse 30. Start at verse 30. And Jesus answering said, A certain man went down from Jerusalem to Jericho, and fell among thieves, which stripped him of his raiment, and wounded him, and departed, leaving him half dead. And by chance there came down a certain priest that way, and when he saw him, he passed by on the other side. And likewise a Levite, when he was at the place, came and looked on him, and passed on by the other side. But a certain Samaritan, as he journeyed, came where he was, and when he saw him, he had compassion on him, and went to him, and bound up his wounds, pouring in oil and wine, and set him on his own beast, and brought him to an inn, and took care of him. And on the morrow, when he departed, he took out 2 pence, and he gave them to the host, and said unto him, Take care of him, and whatsoever thou spendest more, when I come again, I will repay thee. Which now of these 3 thinkest thou was neighbor unto him that fell among the thieves? And he said, He that showed mercy on him. And Jesus said unto him, Go and do thou likewise. There's three characters in this parable we're going to talk about. The priest, the Levite, and the Samaritan. When we think of the priest, we think of what should be a spiritual man, right? I mean, this was a teacher of the law. He had performed cleansing rituals. He had overseen legal matters. Leviticus 10, Leviticus 13, Numbers 5. This man should have been a model of true spirituality. This man should have been this thief's, he should have been his savior at this time. He should have been his helpmate. But yet when he saw the victim, he passed by. And I noticed something. It just didn't say he passed by, he said he passed by on the other side. It's almost like he walked around this person. I've often thought, why? Was it because of a guilty conscience that when he walked by, he just couldn't look at him, he just walked by, or was it just because he didn't want to see it? I've often wondered about that. But to me, when he said he passed by on the other side, that kind of made it worse, in my opinion. Then you had the Levites, who were distinguished from the priests. They were just a class under priests. They served under the priests, had different duties. They cared for the transportation of the priests, you might say, and they set up the tabernacles. We read that Numbers 4. Again, these Levites should have been examined this victim needed. But he also passed by on the other side. Neither of these men saw the worth of this victim, which, by the way, was made in the image of God. No matter what, no matter who, every person is made in the image of God. We need to keep that in mind. Then we come upon the Samaritan. You see, the hostility between the Samaritans and the Jews is scattered throughout Jesus' ministry. I mean, it just didn't get, it just wasn't a mesh there. Jesus himself engaged with the sinful Samaritan woman in conversation at the well because he saw the soul. He was concerned with the Samaritan woman. He wanted to, he saw the value in her soul. John 4:9 says that Jews have no dealings with Samaritans, not Jesus Christ. He saw the value of that human being. And I thought it ironic that Jesus used this Samaritan in this role, in this parable, the uniqueness in the teaching and using the Samaritan as the centerpiece of this, showing the importance. Let's look at verse 33 real quick. He had compassion on him. He had compassion on him. Early Greek context talks about the deepness. The exact word in the Greek form was entrails, the insides. In other words, this Samaritan was moved deep with compassion toward this victim. It was in him that he was going to help this person. And the deep concern for this victim. What a good example for us. Again, Christ showed this same compassion. Let's read quickly Matthew 20, around verse 30 through 34. Matthew 20, 30 through 34. Matthew 20, 30 through 34. And behold, two blind men sitting by the wayside, when they heard that Jesus passed by, cried out, saying, Have mercy on us, O Lord, thou Son of David. And the multitude rebuked him, because they should hold their peace, but they cried the more, saying, Have mercy on us, O Lord. And Jesus stood still and called them, and said, What will ye that I shall do unto you? And they said unto him, Lord, that our eyes may be opened. Next verse. So Jesus had compassion on them and touched their eyes, and immediately their eyes received sight and followed him. Jesus also showed compassion to those that were following him. For 3 days they had followed him. He was going to his place of peace, but yet he saw them. They had followed him for 3 days, and he looked upon them with compassion and said they hadn't eaten for 3 days, and he showed mercy upon them. He was worried for their condition. Anybody have any comments or questions or anything? What is? Turn to James chapter 1 and verse 27. James 1 and 27. James 1, 27. Somebody read that for me.
Religion that is pure and undefiled before God the Father is this: to visit orphans and widows in their affliction, and to keep oneself unstained from the world.
True, genuine in God's sight is to visit, counsel, comfort, relieve the fatherless and the widows. Those who need it the most in their afflictions, they're helpless, maybe their hopeless states. God sees that as value, and not only to the orphans and the widows here, but it always does me good if I do something that it makes me feel better. It makes me feel good when I do something for somebody. And it's an encouragement, and exhorts, and it's an exhortation. True, genuine. Compassion begins with a genuine heart. Yes, ma'am.
I have to say, this congregation takes care of the weak. It's not hardly a week goes by somebody don't ask me, do you need anything? And when one person goes to the physician, I told him he needed a rest. On Sunday, on Monday, they tell me they're building a
It's compassion that triggers that, though. It's the love for one another. It's the true feeling, and that the world doesn't know. The world can't know. They can know, but the world doesn't know until they understand the will of the Father. You know, it might be that monetarily speaking, someone can help more than somebody else. It might be that somebody can physically help somebody more than they can through monies or something. But we all can do something. It might be just sound wisdom advice that some of our, maybe our older, if they were older, the widows needed sound, maybe business advice, someone they can lean on and trust to confide in. There's so many ways that can be useful to help.
Greg, a little bit of time helps somebody out just as much as anything.
Yes, sir.
I think we're more selfish with that, including myself, than anything we have. We live in a world where it's run, and just neglect a lot of times to do what we should.
Absolutely.
Same thing.
You know, also, Greg, a lot of the world is gotten away from the Bible, and their only thing that they think of is the 4-letter word self.
Absolutely. Deny self and take up thy cross. You can't take up your cross without denying yourself. And there's so much involved in taking up the cross, but self gets in the way. You're not going to be able to do anything. And if you do it, sometimes you make it go through the motion, but the heart, the passion, the sincerity is not there also. But true compassion, the world doesn't know. Verse 34, back in Luke 10. And went to him and bound up his wounds, pouring in oil and wine, set him on his own beast, brought him to an inn, and took care of him. Action, action, action. There's 6 things in that one verse right there that this man did. Went to him, first and foremost. He saw him. He went to him to check on him. The other 2 guys went around him, right? They went around him. They went to him. This guy went to him. He bound up his wounds. He cared for him right there. He put bandages on him. He gave him medicine. He applied medicine. He provided transportation. He provided shelter. He provided long-term care. I mean, think of the things that this one person did. That this other guy, this road to Jericho, they say, was some 17 miles long. I mean, up through around a mountainous, treacherous place. And it was a thief haven. It was known for people like this. So there's 6 things he did. I mean, when we stop and think about the things that we can do, sometimes it takes planning, sometimes it takes forethought, and sometimes it takes spur of the moment something. But there's a lot that goes into it. It's amazing how, we get down here a little further, one thing he said down here that I really want to focus on. But verse 35, the 3 things I want to look at there, he provided, in this instance, he provided money, monetary. 2 pence. Approximately 2 days' wages is what some of the scholars say. 1/12 of a denarii was what it roughly took to pay for one night of a stay at an inn. So this man roughly paid for 3 weeks of lodging here. He left enough money for roughly 3 weeks of lodging. Preparation and planning. And personal plea to take care of this man. Look down there at the end of verse 35. And on the morrow, when he departed, he took out 2 pence and gave them to the host, and said unto him, Here it is, take care of him. Whatsoever thou spendest more, I will come again, and when I come again, I will repay you. In other words, what a great example here. He take care of it. And if it's more than I've left, I will reimburse you. What a great, great example for us. I remember one time, a long time ago, I hadn't been driving long, I don't know. And I came upon this wreck, before you get to Waco there. And this person actually didn't have a wreck and die, but he had a heart attack and died. And there was this guy that had pulled him out of this car and was performing CPR on him. And I was young, and I didn't know, I couldn't do anything like that. But this gentleman tried and tried, I know, for 15 minutes to get this person back to life. That stuck with me all my life. And he didn't know this man from nobody. But he drug that guy out of that car. We got there at the same time. And he performed CPR on him. And he did it for a long time. And he just wouldn't stop until the ambulance got there. And when they got there, the guy was obviously dead. But that stuck with me all my life. This guy tried to save this person. And, you know, he showed compassion on this man, on this person. He didn't know him just like the Samaritan here. He didn't know who this people was. But he knew one thing, he was going to take care of it. He was going to do what he could to take care of it. And so, what a great example for us here. Anybody have any comments or anything? I wonder what that innkeeper thought when this Samaritan was telling him, you take care of him. And if the bill goes above what I've given you, I'm going to come back. I wonder what this innkeeper was thinking about this Samaritan here. Boy, he means business, right? What a good guy. What a good person he is. This guy, who knows who this guy is? But this Samaritan was bound and determined to take care of him. When we think about, when we do something like that, when we do something that's good in the sight of God, and we do it for the right reasons, for the glory there, not here, what a great example for him. And who knows what you might lead somebody to Christ by doing that. What a great example for us. In closing, Brother T.B. Larimore used this parable back in the Restoration times. He says there's three ways to compare this parable. Three points here. And he calls them the iron, the silver, and the gold. The iron point he says, people in their mind might makes right. In other words, there are people out there who just take what they want, right? No matter what, and whoever costs, whoever it hurts, whatever damage it does, they take what they want at all expense. And then there are those out there who didn't harm anybody, and who they don't necessarily do anything wrong, but yet they look out for their own self-interest. In other words, they walk on by, right? Like the priest and the Levite. They didn't hurt this guy, and they didn't, but they didn't do anything to help him. They just walked on by. And then he says there's the golden rule: treat others as you would like to be treated. Matthew 7:12, Romans 13:8-10, Galatians 5:14. There's so many passages in the Scripture that teach us that. True compassion is when we want to serve others and help others.
I had a preacher tell me there won't be no selfish person in heaven.
Can't be. Can't see how it will be. Only the humble. Only those who are willing to admit they're wrong and make things right. Anybody have anything else to say? Add to it? Thank you.